Hello everyone and welcome back to the DMSide. This is the final episode for our Dragon of Icespire's Peak, and if you've been following along, you know that I had been running a game for some brand new players who had never really played before through the starter campaign of Dragon of Icespire's Peak, where I had spliced in a couple of things from the Lost Mines of Phandelver in terms of just landmarks and some characters and options for side quests that didn't ever end up getting taken on board and used, except for the Banshee down in Coneybury, or outside of Coneybury. Now, also, you've probably seen the previous video where I explain where I've been and why it's been so long since this video. So if not, go check that out. It explains everything. And I realized watching the last video to catch up on where we left off, I had longer hair. So yeah, I've had a haircut since. I've moved home since. And yeah, we moved our game to an online game for the final session, which went over the entire day. We actually took the full day. We had a breakfast break, we had a lunch break, and then we also had a dinner break so we could smash out finishing this campaign, because we were hard pressed for time and couldn't really figure out the best way to meet up due to the COVID pandemic. But luckily that's coming to a bit of an end. New South Wales and Australia is on their way to opening up again in a couple of weeks. So we're going to see how long this video is for, and I may break it up into 2 or 3 parts depending on how long. Anyway, as always, like, subscribe, comment down below how your campaign is going and any advice for my future campaigns or any questions. Let's get on with the video. So because we played so long ago, I really didn't, it's sometimes hard to remember every single thing that happened. So I've actually on my iPad here because this is where I take a lot of my notes, especially during the game, and I've kind of gone back through and cleaned them up so that way I can give you the best representation of how things went. So basically at the end of our last session, the players had finally met Marvin, who is, as I mentioned before, my Glorious Gilmore-styled character. And I wanted to usher them out of his store relatively quickly because I wanted to get out of Neverwinter. I basically wanted to get them back on the road, back to doing their job. And that's exactly what we did. The only real thing that went on in Marvin's shop is they did learn as new players how expensive magic items can be. And as a DM, what it taught me is understanding if magic items really need to be in a store. So the experience I gave these players was, here are all these great magic items and they cost thousands of gold each. Some of them are within their price range, such as very simple +1 weapons, seeing as though I knew that the game was going to be ending. I didn't want to deter them from not being able to have any magic items. I gave them option to common magic items, and I created my own magic item that I was really excited to give to them. And it's such a silly thing, but it was a playful thing. So I called it the Can Trick. Basically, it is a small box that on the inside has a cantrip, and so I wrote up a D100 table, so whenever you threw or actively activated the cantrip, then we would roll on the D100 table similar to wild magic, and a random cantrip would happen. Now, I made it so that way any of the cantrips would basically come from the box itself, so depending on how far they threw it. It couldn't be detrimental to the caster, however it could be detrimental to those around them. So it was probably, I don't like to homebrew too often, however, I do like to dabble in a little bit of creation, and already I'm considering many different ways to change it, such as theming the cantrips by color, using a D8 or a D10 to determine the school of magic, and then having a table that is smaller. There's a lot of different variations that I've already kind of been playing around with, purely just because they're a fun item and they don't really break the game. So the players picked up 5 of those, and they heard about a rumored dragon slaying sword that an adventuring group had actually acquired. However, apparently they went and saw an old lady in the woods. Now my plan was this would be a hag, and should they want to go there, they could either bargain with the hag or they could kill her or even just try and potentially steal from her. I'm a big fan of hags, so I was very excited for this. But due to time constraints, they decided that's not what they wanted to do. So they then went on their merry way, heading towards Harbin's brother, who they were finally going to be delivering some goods to. On their way to see Harbin, they came to a bridge which I just placed along the way, coming off of the main river, the mouth of the river, and then going down a little creek. And on this bridge, there were some dragon cultists. And this is where my subplot was meant to be coming in. I was very excited because this is kind of exposing to the players that the dragon, the cult of dragon. It gives them information into why there's no other adventurers around but them. And so they met with the cult, or the people, these adventurers, or these just regular blokes on the bridge, and they were offered a job. Now, at first they were like, no, we have a job and we really need to just move on. But they heard them out, and when they heard 1,000 gold was up for grabs, as well as board and room, they definitely changed their tune. They were very open to the idea, and they just wanted to know, well, what was the job? And so I spliced in a bunch of random items that they'd have to find, and I used a lot of different things from other like games and shows. So for example, like Yu-Gi-Oh, I said there was like a dark magician's hat. I said there was a Dragon Ball of finding, and just to really play up the fact that these were fake items. However, they were also asked, well, you would need to come with us back to Neverwinter and get on a boat, and we'll send you on your merry way down to the peninsula of Cholt. That's where all these great magic items are. It only takes 3 or 4 months to get down there, and once you've found this particular item that we want, the Dark Magician's hat, you can come back up and we'll pay. You get all the magic items you find there apart from that one. We're going to give you half your gold up front, and then we'll give you the other half when you get back. A couple rolls later, they realized this was obviously a hoax. It was a complete lie. And so they wanted to just move on past them. They wanted to say, no, we will not bother with this. Thank you very much. You'll have to find some other adventurers. And as the group moved along, I planned for the cult to attack them at the opportune moment, and these guard drakes would come out from under the bridge, and then a battle would, carry on as expected. However, the party gave them a little bit more incentive to fight, because Bubble decided that she was going to try and pickpocket one of the guards along the way, because they weren't too sure if they did or didn't have the 1,000 gold that they apparently did. And so they figured, well, why not get 1,000 gold and continue on our way? Unfortunately failed the check, and that's when battle erupted from there. The guard drakes came out from under the bridge. Gobbleknock absolutely just tanked it. It's still so interesting seeing the barbarian, a barbarian that is basically immune to all damage except psychic damage is a difficult thing to tank. Now, luckily, the cultists were still very smart. They saw spellcasters, they attacked them as well, but it did split the damage because the guard drakes, they're beasts, they went to the closest thing they could, and the closest thing was Gobbleknock the Barbarian, so he was just tanking all the damage. I'm pretty sure it's most swings he took 1 point of damage, so he really felt the joy of being strong during that battle, which was fantastic. Once they disposed of them, they realized that they actually didn't have any of the gold, and so a little bit annoyed, they moved on and continued traveling. Now, I asked them, would you like to go through Thundertree or would you like to skirt around? And they had heard rumors of the green dragon Venomfang being in Thundertree, so they didn't want to risk it, so they spent a little bit of extra time skirting around Thundertree. Once they got around Thundertree and got to the edge of the Neverwinter Woods, that's where they came to the log camp. And it was eerily quiet. There was nothing there. And now in the book, normally you have the, I think they're ankheads, and there are a few twig blights. Now, for the group, level 4, they were pretty strong at this point. I decided, you know what? I'm just going to amp it up. I'm just going to throw in, we'll keep the twig blights, we'll get rid of the ankheads. I'm going to put in a shambling mound, and we'll have a few extra types of blights. We'll have some of the vine blights as well, just to cause some numbers, because you know what I've realized? D&D Beyond's challenge rating when you build encounters is very much not really that great. I feel like everything I build is deadly, and this is where it comes down to us as DMs to really know our players, know what they can do, know how strong they are, know the damage output they can do on one turn, know the way that they play. If they're smart players, then they will not spread their damage as often. If they are less experienced players, chances are they may spread the damage, and so you need to account for the fact that chances are maybe they won't make the best choices, and you want them to be challenged but not to die in a TPK. So knowing my players have learnt a lot, I decided I'm going to amp it up, throw a Shambling Man in there, have a big tank monster, but then from afar I'm going to be having, I think it's the Vine Blights, which can throw basically their ranged attacks, and a couple of Twig Blights that are in there, just kind of bothering, taking up a bit of that action economy. And the battle was fantastic. The battle actually occurred after they found Harvin's brother. They found him hiding in his house where he's meant to be. They convinced him to let them in, and then he explained to them that something killed everyone in the night. He's not sure who it is or what they are. He heard movement, and they kind of got a sense for, yeah, he's a bit of a scumbag like his brother. However, they were here for a job, and I really liked that the players just went with, well, we're here for a job, so even though we don't really like you, we still need the money because we want to buy magic items, we want to, get stronger. Eventually we're going to fight a white dragon or a green dragon or both dragons, so we need to figure this out, and so this is just part of the process. So they went out and then they fought the Shambling Mound. Now there was a surprise round on them, which I was very excited about. One of them got grappled, Gobbledock, which was really awesome because now their tank wasn't really there. However, as expected, the group managed to defeat the creatures without losing anyone, but their health was drastically lowered. So what did they do? This was quite a long time in the morning. I know it comes across really quickly in a video, but this took a lot of decision making. It took a lot of time for them to realize what was the best course of action. So by this point, they decided we're going to take a long rest. We'll stay at the camp for the night now that we've eliminated the danger, and then we're going to head off back to Neverwinter to hopefully get some magical items. And that's exactly what they did. They moved on back towards Neverwinter. But this time they decided, and I just reminded them very casually, would you like to go through Thunder Tree or would you like to skirt around? And I'm not sure what changed in their minds, but they decided, you know what? We're going to go through Thunder Tree today. We're going to stealth in. We're just going to get an idea of what's here because we know that there's a druid that could give us a little bit more information on dragons. Perhaps we'll run into that person. Now we're just trying to avoid the big dragon. It shouldn't be too hard. They're big apparently. So along they went, using Bubbles as a monk. She has the ability to use Pass Out Trace, which is amazing. They all got plus 20 rolls, and then they skirted on through the ruins of Thunder Tree. Along their way, the very first house they came to was actually the one where the dragon cult were hiding out. So they stealthed outside and listened in. And luckily, they got a bit of information. The cult were there, obviously trying to bring back Tiamat. Their plan was to try and recruit Venomfang, the green dragon, to help them in their cause. They had 3 diamonds that they were going to be offering up as gifts, as a way to gain her trust, and that they were planning on going and seeing her the next day. The players didn't know what to do. They've had a run-in with the dragon cult, but the dragon cult never really wronged them, so they left them. And it was really interesting as a DM because you think, shouldn't you be dealing with this? So they continued on and moved on. I told them that in the top right there was like a bigger mansion looking place. There's a tower towards the middle. There's a few other little areas that they can go and check out. And I kid you not, they said, let's go to the tower. I mean, what are the chances that the dragon will be in the tower? And I don't know if Gobbledock, when he said that, I really don't know if he knew there'd be a dragon there and just wanted to go. But part of me thinks from his reaction of actually getting there that he really didn't think there'd be a dragon there. I think they thought this thing was much larger than these buildings. So they stealthed on up, and then they went into the tower, and then Gobbledock led the way, and as he opened up the latch, all of a sudden there he is face to face with Venomfang. They all have no idea what to do. They want to run, but they realize that they probably won't get very far. And so Gobbledock just says hello, and Venomfang turns as her neck sways in front of him, very amused with this tiny, tiny person that has found their way into her lair. She calls up for the rest to join them and asks, well, what are they here for? Have they come to praise her? Have they come to give her gifts? Heard of her greatness? And immediately they all went, that is exactly why we're here. We heard how awesome you were. Did you hear there's a white dragon around? He is such a loser. And they began to praise Venomfang. They said a lot of the right things. We threw a few persuasion checks out there, a couple deceptions, because we knew that obviously they were just talking through their teeth to try and get out of trouble. And, you know, my favorite thing about dragons is they don't have to just attack, especially green dragons, you know, they're very cunning, they're very sly. And so Venomfang saw this as an opportunity. So first of all, she demanded whatever gifts they brought, and they gave her about 200 gold pieces, which they were very upset to part with. And they gave her 2 of their cantrics, which I didn't really see coming, but she really enjoyed it. I rolled on the table, and I'm pretty sure a mage hand appeared, and so then it vanished. So she kept the other one in her hoard, and they spoke about Crevane. She mentioned how he should not be here on her turf. They asked, well, why haven't you dealt with him? And she was a little bit taken aback by that, very frustrated, nearly almost getting into that battle phase. But however, she mentioned that obviously white dragons are more bestial. She knows that she wouldn't be able to win in a one-on-one combat head-to-head with this creature. And she would not be foolish enough to abandon her hoard just to try and take on Crevane. However, should some plucky adventurers feel the need to go and deal with the problem for her, she would reward them greatly in riches and magical treasures of all kinds and sorts. Now, luckily, Tig rolled a very high insight check, saw through this as a lie, and realized that Venomfang did intend for them to go to Crevane and hopefully deal some damage, but had no intentions of giving them any kind of reward. From there, the players took that as a note and realized, well, this is the best deal we're going to get. So they bowed, they threw some more praises towards Venomfang, and they slowly backed their way out of the tower. And I was really impressed with the way that they dealt with the situation. It's one of those moments where you as a DM go, you're going to fight a dragon, this is going to be dangerous, but then the conversation goes really well and you think, well, it's not my place to force a combat when the conversation, the political side of it all is going well and the players are picking up on all the cues and doing the right thing, so why should they be punished just because we want to have a cool battle? And so I let them get away because Venomfang has other ideals. She has other things on her mind than just killing these little adventurers. Best chance, they go to Crevane and they hurt him. Worst case scenario, they die from him, and who cares? She already got a couple of cool items. Speaking of items, as they were headed back through Thundertree, now getting closer to Radoth, who we'll get to in a minute, they heard an explosion come from the tower. And it was it was Venomfang using her last cantrick, which erupted I think it was like a little thunder wave, or maybe it was a prestidigitation with a loud sound, but there was a large sound at the time, and they realized, oh, okay, so she used the other one. Now, what they didn't know is that the cult heard the explosion and then decided, hang on, something's going on, we should go see Venomfang right now. So, the players got to Radoth, and they knocked on the door. We went through the encounter that is in Phandalin, where they spoke to him about wanting to get rid of perhaps one of the dragons. He passed on the information that a show of power would be really useful to scare one of them off at least. They tried to ask, which one do you think needs to go? And it was a really cool question because both dragons are considered, standard alignment-wise as evil. So I gave them what I believe to be the correct information. Radoth told them that currently immediate threat is Crevane. The white dragon is more bestial. They are more based on strength. They're more arrogant. Chances are he is going to cause more immediate damage than Venomfang. However, on the flip side, Venomfang in the long run is going to be a really big issue because green dragons are cunning. They use their wits to get what they want. They're very intelligent. And so the longer she is allowed to stay, the more of a problem she will become so close to Neverwinter. So the players had a real decision on their hands. This is where we took lunch for them to decide what was going to happen. And this is where we're going to end the video for today. Tomorrow I'll be uploading the next part of the story. What do they do knowing that one of these dragons needs to go, and where do they go from there? I'll see you then.